thank you for joining us for episode 6.
Today, we're really excited to welcome someone who both me and Carrie know really well and have had the pleasure of getting to know really well since we started these roles. We have Annette joining us from Torbay Council.
And alongside Annette,
Our
we
very
also
special
have
guest.
our very special guest. I introduced you to the idea of them earlier. So this is Abby. You will see kind of more of Abby throughout the podcast as well. But she's currently being very good and very quiet. So we will leave her to work and do her thing.
Oh, she's a dog as well.
Oh, she's a dog as well.
Fair point to make, yeah.
Just to put that in.
Yeah, let's put that into context.
If there's any background noise there, the whole
Lying
room is
on the
falling
floor.
about, yeah.
Yeah, Abby is a golden retriever.
Yeah, lying on the floor having a crunch. It's
Yeah,
fine,
exactly.
Good context, yeah. We always say context is key.
Context is
It
key.
is.
So-
Yeah.
Very much so.
On that note, which is about the tone I thought this would end up at. So Annette, tell us about yourself, introduce yourself.
I'm Annette. I work for Torbay Council, have done for nearly 6 years. I'm the fostering, recruitment, retention and events coordinator, as well as a lot of other things, corporate parent champion. So I actively recruit foster carers and go out to events, organise and plan events, and work with our foster carers, trying to support them and our families by getting discounts and free tickets and all sorts of bits and pieces. So yeah, that's what I do, very basically, but there's a lot more detail to it. But yeah, I mean, I love my job. I love what I do. I love going out and meeting people and talking to them, getting emotional when I hear their stories. But yeah, it's what I do.
There's a lot of things to your job title, isn't there?
There
You know,
is, yeah.
and one of the things you mentioned was about being kind of a fostering champion. And one of the things that, alongside everything else that you're really good at, you're very good at championing the kind of need to support foster carers and
Yes.
children who are looked after, and working with local businesses and organisations, making sure that all children and young people who are looked after, can access as many new experiences as possible.
And that's the thing is that, for us, we've linked up with Swissco, which are obviously part of Torbay Council, where they've provided us with a free beach hut, which for us, being in a seaside resort, sadly, a lot of cared for children have never been to the beach. So it's just giving these opportunities for our families, like the beach hut, going to those sort of things. Paint Zoo, free annual membership to Paint Zoo, which is a fantastic zoo for our families. So it's just sort of thinking outside of the box, but also talking to the foster carers to find out the sort of things that they feel that will actually really be helpful for them. So I think, I had a conversation the other day with National Trust, thinking about what National Trust, and we live in an area where, Agatha Christie, and all those different places where, our families, may not be able to go, financially, there is cost implications because businesses have got to make money. Yeah. But being able to give these opportunities to our families and especially to care for children who have suffered, trauma in their lives, but just sort of, and it's all about making memories.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
It is, isn't it? It's those looking back at happy times,
Yeah.
taking those photos, having the, those inside jokes with, do you remember when? And that kind of follows on to what we were talking about with Katie in our previous episode about kind of the importance of life story, and helping children to kind of have their life story and be that storyteller for them.
And I think that's the thing is that, it's always been about memories. Every year we do a Train of Lights event, Dartmouth Steam Railway give us a whole evening on the Train of Lights. And the last couple of years we've provided over 700 tickets for our families, and it's just, Ian went last year, which was really, really good.
And it's a really beautiful event.
And it's just so lovely just seeing all the kids, all the families, just having a night where, and it just sort of starts off the Christmas period because it's at the end of November, and just sort of going from there. But I just think, even, Big Wheel, every year I contact the Big Wheel in Torquay, they've come back, they give us, free tickets. So I think, it's all about the memories, but also it really helps with retention as well, that, the foster carers, we need to be able to keep foster carers. Yeah. Retention is just as important as recruitment, if not more important. We need to be able to support our foster carers on a regular basis, and those sort of things, events and everything come into play, definitely.
Absolutely. And your role really does kind of spread right across that journey from before people have even started to think about fostering to people that have been fostering for 10, 20, 30 years and continuing to support them. And your role's really beautifully stretched across that, isn't it, within Torbay?
It really is. And I think for me, I'm the one constant. And that's what I say to people who inquire about fostering. I am the one constant all the time where, you link up with me, you speak to me, and what I want to do is while they're going through their assessment, continuing, after a couple of months, ringing them up and say, "Hi, how's it going? How are you finding the process? Is everything okay? Any questions or anything like that?" And then, just sort of continuing with that, all the way through to when they become approved, getting contact with them, celebrating with them and saying, "Welcome, here your journey starts now," and then obviously sending them through details about how to get the Peyton Zoo pass, how to get free parking, how to access the beach hut, how to access, free swimming passes and all those sort of things. And then that then helps them as well. And I think it just builds that constant relationship that people have. Fostering is a very personal journey for people. It's a real personal thing. It's a real personal journey, and we're asking them to provide us with as much information about their lives and their personal lives. That you've got to have that sort of friendship relationship with them. And I think because I'm not a social worker, I think sometimes that helps. But I think at the same time, not being I think having social workers is great because they can obviously talk about, the rules, regulations, and those sort of things. And I can in a certain context, but yeah.
But you get that personal relationship and support people right the way through that journey. And I just think it's a really beautiful kind of part of kind of your role is literally that entire journey. And they all know you, don't they?
They all know me. And I think this is the thing is that, for me, if I'm having a hard day, I'm like, what competition can I do? And I just put everything else aside and okay, who can I contact? Who can I, I think, one of the counsellors in one of the council meetings, the lead turned around and said, Annette is really good at hounding people. Which I am.
I wouldn't possibly comment.
No, I wouldn't. No. But I think, even with Moo Bears, we've built up such a really good relationship via Ian, obviously, with regards to Moo Bears. We've been able to, have the large Moo Bear costume, get one of our care experience young people, wear the costume. And even, when we had the Torbay Air Show, we had, David Thomas, the leader of Torbay Council, walking around with this large Moo Bear costume.
Love it.
So I think, it's just getting that out there as well, that, and the number of people who, because I always have a display of Moo Bears, always come up to the stand and say, "Oh, what can I do? How can I, what are Mood Bears?" And explaining to them what Mood Bears are and how they've linked up with Fostering Southwest, Torbay Council and all the other local authorities in the southwest of England. So I think that has been a really, really good, and that's continuing. That's the thing too, is that it's a continued relationship that, obviously I link up with yourself, Ian, on a very regular basis.
Very much so,
very regular, whether it's via WhatsApp or Messenger, Facebook Messenger or email or, whatever it may be. But, I think that in itself, makes a bit of a difference.
It does. We're hoping to be able to bring across Mood Bears.
100%.
They're going to come and join us on one of our episodes because I think it's really important because we've got one of our Mood Bears here as well. He's always been with us, Ray, but we'll be able to tell you more about his story in kind of other episodes.
Definitely. And you do so much from a partnership perspective across Torbay and all really supportive, all the local businesses and community groups, which is fantastic. But hopefully, by going to work on that regional level, as we were talking about with Katie earlier, we're able to bring some sort of different angles to that. Oh, hi, Abby. And that's really useful as well because it just offers a little bit more to foster carers that maybe they couldn't get elsewhere or is new to them. And it's just those opportunities, isn't it, from a retention perspective as well as recruitment
I think it is, and I think the thing is for Torbay, and I'm sure that other local authorities, we have foster carers all over the country. So what I do, because I know Torbay, I live in Torbay.
Yeah.
I know all the different locations, but if we've got foster carers who live in different areas, I don't know of places that I could approach or attempt to approach. So I think linking up with other local authorities within the southwest, start with the southwest, to find out what discounts or free tickets that they're able to obtain for their foster carers, that looking at working in partnership with those other local authorities to see what we can actually do. So I think that in itself, actually would work.
And we've started doing that with things like Powder and Food Festival and places like that, where you've actually had regional groups of foster carers come together for a day out. And the opportunities behind it just to sort of network and chat to sort of like-minded people who you can have those conversations with, which you probably couldn't have with a family member or a friend, because they have had that lived experience like yourself. It's so important.
It is massively important. And I think you've talked about kind of being able to kind of work with businesses and companies and organisations around kind of things, maybe benefits of foster carers and children looked after. But actually what that's also doing is raising awareness across the whole of Torbay or across the whole of the southwest or nationally about the importance of understanding the needs of children who are looked after, care experience, young people, and actually having that kind of a community or kind of social footprint within your company, within your organisation, just being aware and potentially, I guess, offering...
Well, it's fostering friendly, isn't it?
Yeah, I think about being fostering friendly, thank you.
And I think that's what it's about, is that people know what adoption is, worldwide. Everybody knows what adoption is. People don't know what fostering is. And people feel that fostering, there's so much that you've got to do to become a foster carer. And I think it's just sort of getting rid of those sort of ideals. And I think that's the reason, I aim to do events, to attend events, not necessarily to recruit foster carers, but for people to know that we actually exist, that we're out there. Torbay Council have a fostering service, making sure that, people are actually aware of it, having the two-pronged attack, putting it on social media, putting it on the website, advertising it, with free local radio, all those sort of things. And that, it's taken us a long time to get to this point, but that's what we were doing. And that's what's working. It really is working. People are actually deliberately coming to an event, and that's really good for the events because people are coming to these events that may have never been there before. So I think, we class, any of these event organisers as our corporate partners, as well as obviously businesses as well, and I think, just sort of advertising and thanking them, whether it's on our social media pages or on our website, which, we've got corporate partners, for me, that's my bit of a ploy to say to them, look, if I'm able to get this, I can advertise you on Torbay Council, and that actually does work, and I get feedback from everything I do from our carers to say, look, can you send me feedback? And the feedback I get is real heart-wrenching, but that's the reason why I do it.
Because it makes a difference. It makes a difference to those families for that extra day out. We've talked a little bit about the kind of the costs and kind of small amounts of payments that go to foster carers and foster families. But raising children is expensive, and those additional days out that might be kind of a free day out, or it might be that extra opportunity or photos that you take for their life storybook,
and that's the thing is that for us, we're in partnership with British Triathlon Trust. We've been successful for a grant, in which case what we're wanting to do is provide all our cared for children in Torbay with a free bike, free refurbished bike.
I love it.
Which is really, really good. So what we do is that, we've had 2 events already. We've got another event at the end of July, and we call it Active Skills for Life. And what we're going to do this time is not just do the Velo Park, having all the bikes there that the children go away with, but also doing swimming, doing activities, and we just call it Active Skills for Life. And the last 2, the one that we did at Easter, we did obviously Easter egg hunt, egg and spoon with an an Easter egg on a spoon,
Yeah.
you know, and we had something like 70 children come to that. So, you know, those sort of things, you know, and the carers, they just love it because they all get together, they all bring picnic lunches.
Yeah.
And it's just lots and lots of fun. And I think, you know, for us, you know, we're very lucky. We've got this really good relationship with British Triathlon Trust. And I think, you know, that in itself is just... It's just really good, but it's not just so much just care for children. It's also all our special guardian children, our children with disabilities, you know, giving them the option, the opportunity, you know, and even like Torquay United, who have actually just agreed to giving us another 30 free home game tickets for every home game. They've done that for 5 years now.
Wow.
You know, so, you know, it's having these constant relationships with them. And I think, you know, the feedback that you get from, you know, these... some of the children who are just like, you know, I was surprised that I haven't received an email from one of these families already about Torquay United tickets, because guaranteed I will actually receive an email saying, Annette, is it going to happen again this year? You know, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think, you know, when it comes down to, as I said, you know, British Triathlon Trust, fantastic, really, really good. Very supportive.
We are seeing more and more larger organisations sort of get behind it a little bit as well. We've seen that. We've talked a lot about PureGym, who we're really lucky to work with in Torquay, and their membership offers to children and young people has been absolutely fantastic. So it's a gateway to some things that maybe people haven't had the opportunity to experience or don't quite feel like it's for them.
And that's the thing, is that, you know, I mean, it is money, you know, I mean, it costs money, you know, and the thing is that, you know, what we've got to be mindful of is that, you know, foster carers are taking the responsibility of a cared for child that the local authority have got a corporate responsibility for. So, you know, for us, you know, the money that they receive as an allowance for the child, you know, it's not an income. You know, for the foster care, it is an allowance, but it's to make sure that they are not out of financial pocket. But if they've got their own children, plus they've got fostering children, you know, and that's the thing too, is that any of these events are open to any child that fosters, you know, so they're actually open to all those children as well, because they actually foster. You know, their parent. It's not just their parents that are foster carers or parent. They're also foster carers. You know, it's just remembering that as well.
Is really important. Like we were talking in our previous episode, in episode 5, about the importance of children whose parents may foster, and or thinking about fostering and getting information out kind of to them, and including them in all of the fun days that you've talked about, and the kind of those opportunities, because they also foster.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that they're sharing. You know, we talk about sharing, and it's not so much sharing toys or sharing, you know, like, you know, anything like that. It's about sharing their parents, you know, about sharing, you know, their siblings, you know, their pets, you know, and all those sort of grandparents, you know, it's about that sort of thing. And I think, you know, there is a booklet that Fostering Network have actually created, which is My Family Fosters, which, you know, what we're going to do is that anybody who enters into a fostering assessment, you know, I'm going to give that one of them those books. Brilliant. But also there are other books online which you can buy, but a lot of them are adoption related.
They are,
There's not many that are fostering, and I think that's the thing, is that I do a bit of a trawl. I do put it out there to all the other local authorities saying, is there a certain content or anything that you have? And I think it's all about sharing good practice. It's all about sharing our knowledge. I'm all for that, you know, being a smaller local authority. And, you know, being the one person who does the role, rather than being numerous people who do these roles. And I think, you know, that does really, really help. And obviously coming back to you guys. You know, and I know that, you know, the girls in your office, you know, who are absolutely brilliant. If they've got questions.
Recruitment officers.
Recruitment officers. They're fantastic. You know, I've got a really, really good relationship with them. You know, and I think, you know, we're all learning, and I think, you know, for them, they're learning. They ask questions like, seriously, just ring me. Just pick up a phone, ring me. If I don't answer, I'll ring you back. You know, and that has worked, you know, and it is making a difference with regards to the inquiries that we're getting, that they're coming through to us, you know, which is fantastic. And people feel prepared, you know, and I think that's what it's about, is that people go into a fostering assessment or going into an initial visit, they've got to be prepared, And the only way they can be prepared is by them asking questions,
Yeah.
and by either myself or your recruitment officers speaking to them and speaking to them about, different things. It could be about ex-partner checks, could be about adult birth children checks, about living overseas and working overseas, all those sort of things that, most of the time you would spend at least 45 minutes to an hour on the phone for an inquiry. Yeah. But it's time that needs to
It's
happen.
important time, yeah.
It has to happen.
It has to happen, and we, so many of the questions that we do get coming through, that they are so unique to every family.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing not the one thing, but that is a thing that I think, our recruitment officers are really good at, is actually answering all of those questions when people call up to go, just ask, I'm not ready to foster yet, but I just want to know this, and I'm just not too sure. And they're very good at kind of, if they don't know the answer,
They'll find it.
They'll come straight over to you. They'll get it from
definitely.
you.
100%.
Somebody will know that answer.
And I think that's the thing, is that, with fostering, there are so many different aspects to it. Everybody, if you could imagine, everybody's lives are so different. My life is different to yours, and so on and so forth. So I think we're all got our own individual questions that we would like to ask. And as an example, a couple I saw on the weekend, they actually came prepared with a load of questions.
Love that.
Love it.
They'd looked into fostering, they'd really researched it, and they came to the event. Obviously we had, loud music playing in the background, which is great, but obviously sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to have a conversation. But we got through those questions, and obviously I've rung them today, and just a couple of other questions, and they're, as an example, they felt so much better by being able to see somebody face to face, and I'm all for that. I think, it's great speaking to somebody over the phone, but I think face to face, it just makes more of a difference.
And we talk about that from our research and audit into the region at first, and that was actually one of the Southwest specific things that were different, like the Northeast Pathfinder and other areas. That actually those face-to-face conversations and building those relationships from there are actually so vital in making sure that progress sort of progresses. And I think that's one thing we found with events. I think they're very easy to think of it actually, okay, what was our recruitment numbers from that? But it's so much more than that. It's those initial conversations. It is. Like one person who's come with that list of questions who actually now feel like they've been heard and had the chance to understand.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that, it's once again, it's that personal touch.
Yeah.
You speak to somebody, and the thing is that you don't want Fostering Southwest to be known as a call centre, because it's not a call centre. No. It's more than a call centre, and I think, unless people, and that's the thing, is that the only way that people know that it's not a call centre is by the actual local authority saying it's not a call centre. This is what they do, and things like that, and linking up. And I think I've had inquiries where, people have actually spoken to me, spoken to, one of the inquiry girls or recruitment girls, recruitment officers, sorry. One of the recruitment officers, and, they feel that, they've had that sort of all-round sort of touch, which I think is good. But it's not to say that always happens, but I think, even if the recruitment officers from the hub have actually dealt with them initially, I'll always pick up a phone once they've come through to us.
Absolutely, and that's kind of that's the thing, isn't it? Some people, there's an option for everybody, dependent on what your approach, what your style is, what it is that you need. And it might be, 5, 6, 7, 8 different points across different points of your kind of life or over a year until you're ready to make that step. But whatever it is that you need, there is somebody or an avenue to be able to do that. But so once an inquiry comes through to us, and our recruitment officers kind of take that initial information, gathering kind of information about where you live, who you live with, how long you've lived there, kind of employment, loads of different questions, all completely relevant to fostering. And then you're ready, and we send kind of inquirers over to the local authority. What happens next? What's the next bit for Torbay?
What I'll do is that I'll go through it, have a look at it. I'll go through all the hub comments, because there's always, different hub comments where, the recruitment officers have actually put down comments about, the number of times that they've spoken to somebody, or some real detailed information which may not necessarily be on the actual what would you call it, referral that comes through to us. So I'll go through those things. If there's any additional questions, I'll ring one of the recruitment officers, have a chat with them, and then I'll then go through it and I'll accept it. And then at that point, that's when I pick up a phone, and then I ring them, and I take, not my form of inquiry, but I ask them any additional questions that we may have that may be relevant to Torbay.
Absolutely.
And then I organise, if they're ready, I organise an initial visit with one of our social workers. When I'm talking to them, I explain to them the process, you know, what's involved, the references, the checks, you know, all those sort of things, you know, just sort of start thinking about, you know, where you've worked, you know, who you've worked for, talking to them about, you know, how long we would actually go back as far if they haven't had children of their own and they haven't had working dealings with children more than 10 years. We go to a minimum of 10 years. However, if they've got adult children who are in their 40s, we go back 40 years. So, and a lot of that, you know, we can understand that employers, you know, may or may not exist anymore. But once again, you know, it's all about that timeline. It's getting to know who you are, you know, your background, you know, what brought you to this, you know, this decision about becoming foster carers. So I'll sort of go through that detail with them just so that they're really, really prepared. And then at that point, that's when I organise one of our initial visits with one of our social workers. And then one of our social workers will go out and see them. They'll be there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Once again, I prepare them for the initial visit. I say to them, look, you know, you don't need to go around baking bread or anything like that.
It's not about that.
It's not about that.
Coats of paint on everything. It's not about that.
We're just interested in seeing the size of the room, making sure, and obviously, you know, having a look around, making sure that, you know, it is safe and secure. Obviously, we're mindful that the assessment will take 5 months anyway. So at that point, they then sit down with them, talk to them about their relationships or as an individual, talk to them about themselves, about, you know, any trauma, you know, what the process is, you know, what sort of visits that they would have.
Hopes, fears,
you know, about attachment with children, you know, the types of children that they may have in placement with them. Obviously, we can have these conversations, but 9 times out of 10, I can't prepare everybody for every scenario, but then there is training that they can actually undertake during their assessments as well, which really does help. So at that point, they then write up a report and they put forward their recommendation. So that'd be to progress onto a fostering assessment. That report gets signed off by my team manager, and at that point, that's when my team manager says, yep, happy to put them into a fostering assessment. And then I send them a lovely email. And I do say this to them. I said, you know, I send you a couple of really lovely emails. One is a copy of the report, the stages of the assessment. And then I send you a really, really nice email, which has got lots and lots of forms and lots of information that you'll need to provide. So I sort of, you know, when I say that to people, I sort of like, you know, I emphasize the word lovely, and they know what I'm talking about. And I normally give them about a week to return all that information. Once again, you know, I'm sort of talking to them through the process. Get yourself prepared. You know, this is the sort of things that you would need to do. You know, you would have to have a medical. You would have to have a DBS. Even if you have a DBS, we still need to do an updated or new DBS through Torbay. And then they return their forms. And at that point, that's when we then allocate one of our assessing social workers.
And I think those forms, you know, you've talked about them, they can feel, you know, they are quite extensive, you know, and they need to be extensive because, you know, we're asking people to look after some of our most vulnerable children. But there's also help and support to fill out those forms, isn't there, if they need it? You know, it's not just, okay, thank you, here's the forms, off you go. There is the support that's there, the work that you've done to kind of help people kind of know. And often it is about kind of your history. It's your chronology, your key relationships.
It's getting to know who they are. And I think that's the thing is that, and this is what I say to a lot of people, is by the end of the assessment, you know, you will actually have new best friends. You'll have your fostering assessment social worker who knows you extremely well. You have me who knows you extremely well. You even have our business support, you know, who once again also does all the references, does all the checks. So you get to know who we are. But also, you know, I find it a very personal journey. So, you know, if we're having conversations, and I might even talk about my own son or my own daughter, you know, because I think for me, you know, they're personal things, but I'm asking them to provide me with really personal stuff. So once again, it's just building up that relationship with them. So, and then I obviously let them know about Skills to Foster training, which is 2 days, which will really help them. Restorative practice training, which we also do now. We try and get everybody in a fostering assessment to complete restorative practice training in their assessment.
Brilliant. Nice.
And if not, within the first year of being approved, but we really try and get them to do it within their assessment. Because restorative practice training is really, really good. But also there's a load of other courses that are, throughout the year, with our local college, where it could be challenging behaviour, dyslexia, autism, all those sort of things. And I send links to all those, and then people can then decide. And even, Open University do a load of webinars. I mean, there's something like 50. I went through and had a bit of a day of trawling to see what there was, and literally I came up with a list of about 50 different things that people can actually go on to, and people don't have to do it.
No.
But, once again, if people are like, and you find some people are like, I just love training, and they just do everything under the sun, which is great. But, once again, talking to them as well, we've had this recently where, foster carers, we would need to make sure that they're prepared as well, in the way of the room, 2 months before they go to panel. So the fostering assessment takes 5 months. They would go to panel within 6. So, what I want to try and do is about a month before they go into panel is actually just do a bit of a get ready. Have you, got the bedding? Have you got some books? Have you got some toys? Have you got a cot? And all those sort of things, preparing the actual room for, the potential, for us, we are so desperate for foster carers that, potentially as soon as they're approved, they will have a placement.
We were talking to Pete about that, weren't we? About the day that he got approved, and literally then he had a phone call, and it looked like it all happened very quickly. But I think, again, it's about the matching, and if that's the right match for somebody, and they've just been approved, we're going to get on that phone quickly. We're going to start thinking, actually, okay, this could be a potential match, and let's see what happens.
And I think that's the thing. I think, for us, and even with independent fostering agency transfers, people are actually registered with either an independent fostering agency or another local authority, where they've said, look, we really want to transfer to Torbay. We feel the support would be a lot better, or for whatever reasons that they're wanting to, and we do find out the reasons why. We do ask them, we do have a conversation with them, and that could be, as I said, could be about the support, could be about the fact of not being able to get respite. For us, we have respite carers. We are able to, being a local authority, you find that there's a lot of things now that we can do, and I think, we try and fast track those as well, because ultimately, they've got their registrations, they're already approved, and especially if they've got a Torbay child, for us, it makes sense for somebody to be a foster carer for Torbay if they've got a child who's actually already placed with them from Torbay.
And you talk a bit there about the training support, and that's a big piece of why a lot of people might choose to foster their local council over other providers, for example. Have you sort of, in terms of your conversation with foster carers, they give you any other sort of bits about why they maybe chose local council over some of the others, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is support. I think they've thought about the support side of things. I think the thought is, after having conversations with them, the child will have a Torbay for social worker. They'll also have a Torbay social worker. They also feel around the money that, they want the money to stay within the local authority for the children, not go to private enterprise, which, don't get me wrong, there is a need for independent agencies. There is a need. There is a desperate need for them. But I think a lot of people, if they are either transferring or coming to us, and you find a lot of people, and I would probably be the same, do a bit of a search, have a few conversations, find out what the difference is. And I think sometimes it's just the way that we deal with it. We don't hound, we don't, constantly, where somebody may inquire, have an inquiry, say tonight they'll invite them to something, tomorrow they'll ring them, they'll text them. And I think sometimes people feel hounded, but I think, differing reasons, and we seem to be getting a lot more now.
Okay.
And I think, we're getting a lot of inquiries. We had a slow start to the year.
Yeah.
But June, I've got to count how many. There's a lot.
That's good.
No, that's
Good.
brilliant. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, if people are thinking about maybe returning to fostering or, like you say, they've got a Torbay child with them, thinking about actually moving and transitioning over to Torbay, you have foster carers as well that they might want to kind of directly speak to kind of find out more about it. So as well as talking to yourself, you can also then match them with a local foster
bit of a buddy
carer.
type situation. And I think that's what I do is that, I say to somebody, if they're not sure or they want any additional questions, but also when I do events, I always have foster carers on at our events. So I always have a foster carer there who can answer these sort of questions, obviously, and I think that does help. I think speaking to foster carers, because foster carers are honest, they're open, they're honest, they're like, it could be really, really challenging, but it can be really, really worthwhile. And I like the balance. I like the idea of that, because I think you can't just say all the great things about it. You've got to really talk about, where challenges happen.
Yeah.
And also what the support is when those challenges happen, because it's part of a natural part of kind of life is there are challenges along the way. And it can be often more difficult, more complex, because it's maybe not a child who's lived with you for very long, but the support that is there, either from other foster carers, from Mockingbird.
Well, we've got a Mockingbird constellation now in Brixham, and that in itself is really, really working. But I think, after having a conversation with somebody who's in the Mockingbird constellation, he said, they already had something like that going anyway, but it's formalised.
Formalised now,
But I think, for us, we have some really, really good foster carers. We've got foster carers who've been with us for 25 plus years. We've got foster carers who are new to Torbay, who were with an agency, who are absolutely brilliant and come out and support us. And they're just absolutely fantastic to talk about fostering. Very enthusiastic, really bubbly, and, and that sort of thing. So I think, it's always good to have that variety. And I think, as you said, if people are unsure, it's always nice to, even if it's just going meeting for coffee somewhere.
Yeah, those informal chats. And we've been lucky enough to work closely with a lot of the Torbay foster carers. And they have been so supportive and so lovely from sort of day one of the hub. And they've worked closely with like our virtual events, working with yourself. And actually, like you say, people want to hear from other foster carers. They want to see themselves and their feet.
That's
and
it.
Then,
I'm not a foster carer. I mean, I can
we're not
talk to you
foster
about.
carers.
I can talk to you about fostering. I can, support you. But I'm not a foster carer. And I think having those conversations with those foster carers, it really does help, because I think, they talk about, what the challenges are. And I think that's what it is. People don't want to hear about the good side of fostering. They want to hear about the hard and the difficult side of fostering.
And the realities
my God,
of fostering,
very much so.
And if we talk about it, it helps that preparedness, doesn't it? That's the thing. By addressing these things, people actually recognise that there may be these challenges, but Annette and her team are there to support. And this is how your local authority will support you through those steps and where you can find that.
And that's the thing, is that's what we're really focusing on now. I was speaking to our comms guy the other day, and I said, everything that we do has got to be around support. Our social media, support. Our Facebook, our website, support. And we really, really need to push that, because I think that is the big difference.
Absolutely.
It's not always about the money, and you get people say to me, it's not about the money. Obviously being realistic, they're like, well, a certain amount, which
there's some practicality.
Oh my gosh,
absolutely.
so much so.
Yeah.
Cost of living, the whole thing, and but it is around that support, and the type of fostering that people are interested in as well. We have an expectation that, we'd like all our foster carers to be able to do emergency placements, because obviously we have so many emergency placements that come up. Short breaks, we're desperate for short break carers where, these could be children or young people who've got learning difficulties, disabilities, living with their own families.
Yes.
But giving those families support. So, we're going to be really targeting around the short break side of things. They are registered foster carer.
They are.
And, sometimes you find that these are the most challenging young people that, people have. But it's got to, you've got to be the right sort of person to, be able to, work with, children who have those, medical needs and things like that. But yeah.
And you've mentioned kind of a few times about, being desperate for foster carers. And I think it's because we want children to stay close.
Yeah.
We want them to stay in their football club, in their gym club, seeing their best friend, seeing, their auntie after school, staying local. And that is why it's so vital, because we know the impact of children having to move. It was kind of the focus of Foster Care Fortnight, one of our focuses, wasn't it? Around how far children have to move. And I think that's, one of the reasons kind of you and kind of us, we're so passionate about it is because the impact of children having to live or move away from what they know as their home.
And I think that's the thing is that, we say to people, you don't have to live in Torbay to be a foster carer. You don't have to live in Torbay because you can do respite outside of the area, which is, it could be a weekend or it could be, a nice breakaway for a couple of weeks during the summer holidays. It gives the foster carer a break, but it gives the young person an opportunity to be able to, enjoy another area, and things like that. But I think it's very much like you said, we really like to have foster carers who can actually provide homes for children from Torbay. There will always be the need for children to go outside of Torbay for safeguarding reasons, child protection, but it is about, trying to keep the children and, same as with, we generally don't try and change a child's school, unless it's more long term, but then we would look at the circumstances around that. You've also got family time where, children need to stay connected with their families, whether it's their parents, grandparents, siblings, aunts, uncles.
Absolutely.
Having those sort of, the further afield that they go, the more difficult it is for the families to be able to see, their son or their daughter, or their child, who may be in care at that moment in time.
And it does help improve outcomes for everyone, doesn't it? Sort of having that local community feel. Foster carers for children and young people, actually, by sort of working in those community and keeping those bonds where possible as close as we can, we do see the results are just naturally better.
Absolutely. It is trying to support children and young people wherever it is possibly safe to do so, to continue to have that relationship with, a parent, with a brother, with a sister, and make new memories with them, as well as new memories with their foster families.
Exactly.
It's just vitally kind of important for our children.
It really is, and I think it's about stability.
It is.
Children need to have stability. If a child doesn't have stability, it causes so many different problems and issues and things like that. But children need to have that stable, environment around them. And I think that's what fostering does. That fostering offers stability, for a young person where, previously they may not have had that. So I think, that's where it's so important that, and even, foster carers, have got really good relationships with each other.
Yes.
And schools and swimming clubs and after school clubs and, all these fun things that children can do,
growing their village.
Growing
everybody around.
I think that's the thing is that it really is. I mean, I love that actually. I just think, I'm going to take that.
And it's like,
go for it.
Yeah, and you've said before, everyone's village is different. What works for one person times that
seriously?
village. Yeah.
You have to write that down for me. Send it to me later.
I'll make a note.
Great. Oh, I love that. That's it. I'm going to ring Chris this afternoon.
Go for it. But yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
Everyone's village is different, and what's beautiful about your role, Annette, is you're helping people interested about fostering building their village right from the beginning.
Yep.
And then helping to be part of that village for children, being able to stay local. And I think it's just beautiful. And you talk so beautifully, so passionately about what it is that you do. And it's really clear that you absolutely love your job.
I do.
I can see it on your face. Yeah.
I really do, because I just think, I love hearing people's stories. Call me nosy, I don't know, but
appreciative.
Appreciative, exactly. I just love hearing people's stories. I love hearing the reasons why, you know, they became foster carers. You know, I love hearing stories about our social workers, you know, why they became a social worker, you know, why they do fostering, you know. So I think, you know, for me, it makes such a difference. And I can share those stories, you know, obviously confidentially with, you know, local businesses. You know, those are the things that, you know, if it's going to pull at my heartstrings, I'm hoping that it will pull at the heartstrings of a business, of a local company, of an attraction. And it does, you know, and we're very lucky in Torbay. Yes, we have a lot of cared for children. We're desperately trying to get more foster carers, but we've got quite a lot going on in Torbay. You know, as I said, Torquay United, Dartmouth Train of Light. You know, all these different attractions that we can attempt to go to, and they're all really good. They're all very much, you know, we can do this, we can offer this, and this is the time of year that I give myself 10 different businesses I'm going to tackle.
Love
Set
it.
yourself a challenge.
Yeah, we love it.
And what I do is that I do competitions. So, you know, if I have limited tickets, what I do is I send out a competition to all our fostering families, all our special guardian families, all our children with disabilities, all our care experience young people, you know, giving them the opportunity to enter a competition to win, you know, a family of 5 ticket to, you know, the big wheel. You know, or circus, you know, we have the circus coming down once a year, you know, so, you know, all those sort of things. And I think, you know, the beach huts have been very, very popular, because once again, we don't just have the fostering beach hut. We also have, you know, a beach hut where we're offered 2 beach huts a week that we can offer to all our other families.
Oh, amazing.
You know, we've got a 20-year contract with Splashdown where they offer all our, up to, I think it's 100 tickets for all our children.
Abby's joining us.
Yeah.
I have. Where they get free swimming, you know, free day swimming, you know, at Splashdowns.
It's just fantastic. And I think, you know, any business, organisation, you know, any partnership that is thinking, actually, I would really like to learn more about the children that are in my community and how could I help the children in my community. You know, if you're ever not sure who to reach out to, you can reach out to Fostering South West and we're able to put you in contact with maybe a local authority in your area. Annette, it has been absolutely wonderful hearing from you, learning more about you, learning more about kind of all the work that you do and everything that's available for Torquay foster carers is absolutely fantastic. There's way more than I even kind of realised that you've kind of talked about. So just want to say a massive thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Before you go, we have our closing question for everyone who sits in that chair, don't we?
We do.
So we ask everyone who sits there this question. Didn't work with virtual earlier, so we didn't do that one, but they're going to hopefully come in person later in the year, so we'll get that then. We always say or ask, what would your one piece of advice be to someone considering becoming a foster carer?
Think about going to your local authority first. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Because that's where the children are from.
Yes.
Go to your local authority. Everyone has a local authority. Go to them first. And also ask questions.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Ask as many questions as you feel comfortable with.
Yes.
You know, I think, you know, because we can answer those questions. And if we can't,
we'll know someone who
find
does.
know somebody who does.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know, I think ask questions, you know, and that just be yourselves. You know, you're thinking about fostering for a reason, you know, but just be yourselves. I've given you 3 answers.
I love it.
That's great. We love it.
One can be Abby's, it's fine.
Well done as Abby's. Thank you, Abby.
Thanks, Abby. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you for inviting me.
And then future episodes that we've got coming up.
Yeah.
So we have got a care experienced young person who's going to be coming and joining us.
Yeah.
Talking about their experience of being kind of fostered and continuing to live with their foster family after they've turned 18.
Yeah, we've got 2 social workers joining us from South Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
Talk about training and that side of the fence.
Yep. And we also are going to be having an elected member from a local authority who is part of the, obviously, kind of corporate parenting within that local authority, talking about kind of, the role that our councillors and elected members kind of have in supporting and caring for children who are looked after. So we've got some really interesting episodes coming up. So we invite you to kind of come and join us when they're out.
Yeah.
But until then, we say thank you very much.
Yeah, and don't forget, like, follow and subscribe, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annette.
Thank you.